Of his need for intimacy makes him stimulation starved. It's not atypical for adult men in our culture to never get touched by anybody, except perhaps as a prelude to sex with a woman, and even then, if most men could figure out how to have sex without touching, they'd probably do it. And from what I hear from some women, some guys have succeeded. He turns to booze, high-danger activities, cigarettes, spicy foods, challenges, TV, sports, all of which to sort of hype himself up to make himself feel alive. He doesn't know his emotions, so he can't read others' emotions. And the denial of his passivity makes him a hyperactive, easily burned-out machine. I have a chapter in the New Male called Sleeping is Feminine. And in that chapter, what I really deal with is that all life-nurturing physical habits are feminine. And that the macho male prides himself, bizarre as it may seem, on his ability to do with little to no sleep. So he becomes a hyperactive machine with no passivity cycle. The so-called sexist pig, the male who dominates and uses women, has typically been exquisitely balanced with the Earth Mother, who admires her hero for his dominance, his power, and his strength. Neither could change without upsetting the balance. However, she could change at less of a price because he was the actor. And because he was the actor, he was responsible. He was guilty. She was the reactor, and therefore she was the victim. Therefore, her changes were justifiable. Feminism, once past the raging, blaming stage, is actually life-saving for the male. He no longer needs to feel guilty. He no longer needs to feel responsible. He no longer needs to feel compelled to perform. He no longer needs to feel grateful for sex or self-hating for not being a super success. However, if women remain at the stage of rage, which a lot of feminists have almost fixated on rage and blaming, they remain in the Earth Mother catharsis period, releasing directly what our mothers and grandmothers released indirectly with their endless catalogs of physical and emotional symptoms, but there is no growth. Early male lib was an actor reaction, which was, it was a bunch of guilt-ridden guys interjecting the female accuser. So before my book came out, most of the so-called male lib movement literature was self-hate literature, saying we're chauvinists, we got to get our act together, we've got to stop treating women like sex objects. It was all self-hate, guilt-ridden literature, stage one of being an actor. Masculinity and femininity, as I said before, are both defense systems. In effect, they're psychological disorders that turn men and women into enemies who come to hate each other for the very things they're attracted to each other for in the first place. So she's attracted to him because he's dominant, strong, rational, independent, sexual. Then she comes to hate him, saying, you control me, you don't need me, you never express emotions, all you want to do is screw me. He falls in love with her because she's passive, submissive, adoring, fragile, emotional, dependent, and a Madonna. Then he says, you're smothering me, you're irrational, I can never resolve a fight with you, you're always clinging to me, I never know what you're thinking or what you want. Every time I go to bed with you, I feel like you're doing me a favor. In addition, masculinity and femininity, because they are defense systems, make adult development a constriction process rather than a growth process. For the macho, the best years come early. Likewise for the Earth Mother, and it's all downhill. In fact, I have a chapter in the New Male called Alive at 20, a Machine at 30, and Burned Out by 40. So rather than growth, you get constriction. So, the past. For the feminine woman, the screaming is easy. For the men, mea culpa, I'm guilty, is easy. However, nothing has changed until we move beyond this exquisitely balanced dynamic that feminists do not alter so long as they seek out strong, successful, powerful, autonomous men, while men seek out the sweet, fragile, sensitive, emotional Madonna for an actor-reactor dance. Thank you.
Betty, if you'd like to pick it up from there.
I agree with every word that Herb said. And I don't have to go back to deal with this because he's right. But what broke it? What got us out of this bind, will get us out of it, is getting us out of it. You see, if you leave it, my original training was a psychologist, but what I had to do when somehow or other I began to confront the reality of my own and other people's condition as women back 20 years ago, when I was living according to this image, the post-World War II, what I later called the feminine mystique, where no matter how many women were working outside the home or whatever, it was the happy housewife, was the image, and you might say the Earth Mother in an enormous exaggeration, just as it in fact that image had to go. Like a last gasp of reaction. So each woman felt that she was alone, she was a freak, if she had, eating peanut butter sandwiches with the kids, she'd say, "Is this all?" Other women didn't feel this way. They were happy with their lives. They were fulfilled. They were having orgasms, throwing the powder into the, washing machine. All the psychological words that we had then, based on popularizations of Freud and even sociological jargon, only reinforce this image. I mean, the only image of woman, and this was traditionally so back in the dawn of history, as far back as what he called the Earth Mother goes, but was exaggeratly so at a point when, in fact, evolution was making it very necessary for the Earth Mother for the woman to get out of that mold, out of that mind, couldn't encompass their human reality anymore, and the evolving necessity, evolution of the world. There was no image of woman, even 20 years ago, at the point when we were ready to break through. They say in the history books that my book, The Feminine Mystique, started this process. But it wasn't because I did it. I put into words, I made conscious what had to happen, and somebody else would have if I hadn't, and in fact many other people did too. There was no image of woman except in sexual relation to man. The woman was defined first by tradition and maybe by necessity. I don't want to go back to the original hunting, fishing, whatever, Earth Mother, the origins anthropologically, or because we can argue about it, and besides it's almost irrelevant. We can just go back 20 years and see, at least from there, whether maybe it was a necessary definition of woman solely in terms of her childbearing function, when she didn't, that is one of her functions. She is the person that gives birth to babies, when she had no control over that function, when many babies had to be born for a few to survive, when women sometimes didn't live too much longer than their childbearing years, and would, the early American forebears, if you look in the graveyards, one of the lusty American man would bury 3 wives worn out in childbearing and child rearing. But that was